All right. So my name is Adrian, and for my speech, I'll be discussing racial discrimination. Racial discrimination was a huge thing in the past that has come back into today's, society and is currently affecting everybody. And what I want, for my speech is to bring awareness on racial discrimination and how it affects society. And as you already know, racial discrimination affects people in society, is unjust and unfair, and creates a negative setting in society. All right, so racial discrimination affects people every day in society, just everybody. Racial discrimination happens in a public setting, where someone walks into a restaurant and the restaurant won't serve food to them, due to their color of their skin. Like, that's crazy. It is unfair to people with colored skin because they should be treated equally and fairly. And it also creates a negative tension between the restaurant and the customers, which is not what a business wants. And people who are not white are prioritized last in some instances. People of color aren't put first, which is totally like, whoa, like that shouldn't even be happening in the first place. And they're either skipped in line or are served last, which is just that's just mind-boggling to me. Also, not only are there, racial discrimination in, public settings, but in professional areas of work, like, whoa, promotions in work, some businesses, tend to promote white people, faster than some colored people. And, workers who are still not promoted could be the hardest workers in the business, but aren't promoted because of their skin color. And that to me is just insane. Like, everybody should be treated equally, equal rights and equal opportunity. This also affects the reliability on, their workers. Their skin color affects, how much the your boss trusts you or trusts them. And it may, like, damage that trust and bond between, worker and boss because of their skin color, which shouldn't even be the case. Racial discrimination is seen in everyday society during work or even in public settings. Treating someone differently because of their skin tone is just unfair and unjust, which brings me to my next point. Racial discrimination is unfair and unjust due to the actions that have occurred during the now popular Black Lives Matter movement, where police have been caught on camera abusing their authority rather than protecting, the people they serve, no matter their race or skin tone. So it is unfair in a way that affects the individual's own life. It also brings down their motivation, which is just huge to me. It also makes a person believe their goal is not worth it, and it could just downright stop the individual from succeeding because of, racial discrimination. It also affects their mental health because it forces them to overthink and it degrades themselves, makes them think less about themselves, which is not what anybody wants. So bringing that back, it is also just facts, unfair and unjust in the United States. As number one, the Bill of Rights says that everyone is equal and that everyone has these rights that cannot be taken from them, no matter their race, skin tone, sexual orientation. As long as they're human living in America, they have these rights. And you already know every human has basic human rights, no matter their skin tone or skin color. But obviously, in today's society, that does not have a huge effect, and I think people need to be more aware of that. Also, federal law prohibits discrimination in any way. It is under the U.S. Constitution, and it protects everyone from discrimination regardless of their skin tone. As you already know, racial discrimination are both unjust and unfair in society and creates a negative setting as people in society as people try to spread awareness for, what's right. Racial discrimination creates a negative tone in society. Like, that is not what you want in society. And the fight, or my first point is fights between different groups of people, or fights to bring awareness of the racial issue. People of color fighting for change because they've had enough, And peaceful protests and voting have been a huge factor in spreading the message. For example, the civil rights protest in the 1950s and 60s, where citizens of color and supporters stood against racial injustices, and this followed up with ending segregation and employment discrimination, which is a huge win. Some people do not understand and fight for what they know, and are not willing to sit down and listen to another person's perspective. People with different views are sometimes not able to come to an agreement, and when that can't happen, that hurts society. Sometimes it leads to a fight or a heavy confrontation because people are defending what they believe in, which is totally fine. But problems become issues when they aren't resolved peacefully, and protesting usually comes first before any hurt is done, which is peaceful protesting. That's good. It also helps with educating people on topics they don't understand, and to bring people with similar goals together, which is huge. And writing is the next step and brings worldwide attention to the issue and creates like a serious tone about the issue. Riots can turn really violent in a matter of minutes, but sometimes riots can bring distrust between the people and their own police, wedging like a gap between the citizens and their own police force, and hurting the trust they had with the community. So all in all, racial discrimination affects people in society, is unfair and unjust, and creates a negative setting in society. And I wanted to say this speech and to bring awareness about racial discrimination, and to tell you guys that it's not like it's not it's not like it's it'll stay for like a couple year or a year or two. No, it is here to stay unless we do something about it. And so I guess that brings me to my question to you, that is, racial discrimination has been like a huge social issue ever since the beginning of time, or when America was founded. So my question to you is, what are you going to do to help change society so that everybody has equal opportunity and is created equal? Thank you.